In the morning, the campers set out for the tournament after a small breakfast and warm-up. While on the trek there, Sachu dropped back to try and talk to Adi.
So, I hear you can shield against anything. Is that true?
Adi ignored him for a moment before answering.
That's right.
You can't do offensive magic?
I could, but the rules won't let you shield an enemy so that his own fire comes back down on him. I don't know about you, but that seems pretty offensive to me.
Sachu blinked. The girl was obviously nuts. Brilliant, but nuts.
Yeah, that sounds pretty effective. I don't think I've ever seen anyone try it, though.
As an afterthought, he added,
And reflective shields are some of the most difficult to do.
Difficult for you, maybe.
Sachu felt a competitive spark within him, but it fizzled out as he knew her statement to be true.
You've got a point.
He allowed her. Adi gave this new boy a second glance. Last night, he'd given her the look that most everyone gave her, a look of disbelief and confusion. Now, here he was talking to her without fear, and it even sounded like there was respect in his voice. When he realized she was looking at him, he smiled and met her silver eyes with his brown ones. Adi turned her gaze back to the road. No use worrying about this fair-haired boy. He'd be gone in just a couple of days. When they reached the area where the tasks would be held, Guyan took Shepri and Kasser off to where the mind tests were going to be conducted. Chalandra waited with the rest of the students as Medwin prepared to take on his challenges. By lunchtime, the body and mind events were over, and it was time for magic. First up was defensive, leaving offensive as the grand finale. When Adi's turn came, she was given 10 dummies to protect without firing any offensive magic. She was to let no harm come to them for as long as she could. Adi bowed, acknowledging that she accepted the terms of the challenge before heading out to take up her post. As soon as she was within 10 feet of her dummies, the blows started. Adi didn't even flinch as she threw up shields so fast and haphazardly that Sachu couldn't believe they held. In fact, it seemed more like she didn't have one single shield up, but she was simply deflecting each individual spell with a partial shield. As the blast became stronger and more frequent, Adi changed tactics. Instead of tracking them, she shielded her charges, but what Sachu soon realized was that she was shielding them each individually.
Why is she doing that? I know a smaller shield is stronger, but it takes so much concentration to hold up each one. She's wasting so much energy, she won't last much longer.
Guyan shook his head.
She is nowhere near out of energy.
Sachu turned back to the challenge to see the wide smirk on Audi's face. It was as if she were mocking the challengers. Sachu couldn't help but smile at her spunk, but then something happened that no one could have predicted. A gigantic mage blast came out of nowhere, down onto Audi's group, quickly wiping the smirk right off her face before it collided with the ground and exploded with a bang. Debris rained down upon the onlookers as shields were swiftly thrown up by all the mages. Sachu, safe under one of his own shields, started running down the field right behind Guyan as soon as he could see clearly. That blast was not regulation, and Sachu was certain that all would be left was a large hole in the ground where Audi had stood. As the dust settled, a collective gasp was heard from the crowd. Not only was Audi still alive, but so were her 10 charges. Audi was, however, hunkered down with her hands over her ears, still holding the shields, as Guyan found out when he ran into hers. Sachu stopped once he knew she was okay and surveyed the damage. The ground was blackened over a circular area about 50 feet in diameter. Interestingly enough, Audi hadn't changed to a single shield when the blast had dropped. Instead, she'd kept up all 11 shields so that the black area was slightly polka-dotted with patches of grass. Sachu awoke from his dazed amazement as Guyan led a very shell-shocked Audi back to their booth while Chalandra went off to find out just who had sent that blast. Sachu debated before heading off with his teacher. During the next hour, the tournament was put on hold while an investigation was conducted into the strange event. No one knew who or where it had exactly originated. As far as everyone knew, it had simply come out of nowhere. It was decided that the competition would go on as normal, as would the investigation. A few hours later, the winners in each section were announced. Shepri had placed second in her language competition, Kasser had placed third in the math division, Medwin had taken first in offense and second in defense, Sachu had taken second in his challenge, and, to no one's surprise, Audi had taken first in her division. As for an overall score, they placed second in the competition, which meant that each school had to haul a £10 silver trophy home. By the time that the announcements were over, they added one final bit of information. They could not determine where the strange blast from earlier had come from, but that they believed that it must have been a fluke, and that no one should worry about it.
I'm afraid, my dear Che, my arrivederci. Arrivederci! Well, I don't know. How do you... Oh, I know that there's a song called Arrivederci, but I'd forgotten how it goes, and now this joke is pointless. Arrivederci. Dear Che, I'm afraid my arrivederci. Dear Che. What's that word? Ida sell a dear Che. Ida sell an album of Arrivederci. What am I doing? I'm wasting time.